So today we will be reading chapter 5 of Genesis and getting the lineage from Adam to, is it Noah, I think?
Mm-hmm.
I remember growing up, it used to be a very interesting passage because we would just read about people being 900 years old and, just imagine old people with long beards. Especially Methuselah reaching almost 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm. I was interested that Mahalalel here in verse 15 had a child almost 100 years earlier than his son. I guess his father, Enosh was 90, Kenan was 70, and then Mahalalel was 65. And then the next person was 162 years.
So
65 again.
So what are you saying exactly?
It's interesting seeing like the difference of years. We've got Jared here who lived 162 years before he had a son. That's a very long time, especially if you think as a married person. Like, he was single for 162-ish years, presumably. Can you imagine being single for 160 years?
Well, obviously for me, I cannot imagine that, but...
I guess compared to his father and grandfather, he wasn't that different. But compared to his son waited almost 100 years later. So Mahalalel was 65 when he fathered his son, and then his son was 162 years.
Yeah, I guess back then people just did things very differently from us, because I think even with our generation, people range from, I guess, around 20 to like 40 to have the first children, which is also just double the age itself.
That's true.
Yeah. Of great note, I think, is Enoch, in the sense that he did not die, but the rest of the people, we hear that they would die, but Enoch did not get to see death.
I remember being so excited about that as a child. I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
But I guess it just shows how easy it is to get wrapped up in the cares of the world, because now I'm like, well, I guess it'd be cool, but there's so many things to miss here.
On this earth?
Well, like you, the students that I'm friends with.
I mean, I think for me, I've said this so many times, I would rather just go as early as I can.
I know, yes. I know that should be my response, but I'm just being honest that my heart is like...
No, it doesn't have to be your response.
Well, anyways, because we're not made to be here forever. We're made to spend eternity.
But if you are enjoying being here, then that's you.
It is funny that Enoch was taken by God, and then his son ended up being the oldest human being.
Oh, because he didn't die?
Methuselah? Enoch was the father of Methuselah, who is the oldest recorded human being. So Enoch had like a life that was shortened because God took him. And then Methuselah, it was like he got the extra years.
Yes. It says that all the patriarchs that lived before the flood, except Noah, were born before Adam died.
What? Where does it say that?
I mean, I'm just reading here from the Matthew Henry, but that's what actually happened. If when you do the reverse calculation of the years, I think that's what's...
I see.
What is this table about?
Age of fatherhood and age of death.
Okay, so it doesn't really show that exactly. Okay.
But that makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, I remember I've seen another table just like this, but it would show when the person was born and when they died, and then you'd start seeing.
I think I did that when I was around 10 years old. I made a table like that because I wanted to calculate how old the world was.
You wanted to prove the Bible if it was correct?
No, I wanted to find out what year God created the earth.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Actually, I think the table which I saw, which was like that, the one I'm explaining, was actually talking about how long the earth, the world was. Yeah. Enoch was the seventh from Adam.
Okay.
So 7 is a number of perfection. I mean, they just said it here. The Holy Spirit, instead of saying Enoch lived says Enoch walked with God. This was his constant care and work, while others lived to themselves and to the world. He lived to God. It was the joy of his life. Enoch was removed to a better world, as he did not live like the rest of mankind, so he did not leave the world by death as they did. He was not found because God had translated him. Hebrews 11 verse 5. He had lived but 365 years, which as men's ages were then, was but a midst of a man's days. So he was in his youth, basically.
He was basically 35 if people were living to 1,000.
Yep.
Maybe
no,
like
if people were living to
closer.
70.
Oh, I see. But I mean, like back then, people were living to 1,000. So if you do like a scale of 100,
then yes.
That's cool. I would definitely want my life to be described that way if someone was writing about me. I hope it will be.
That's a good way to describe somebody's life. Those who begin to walk with God when young may expect to walk with him long, comfortably, and usefully. The true Christian's steady walk in holiness through many a year till God takes him will best recommend that religion which many oppose and many abuse. And walking with God well agrees with the cares, comforts, and duties of life.
What exactly does it mean to walk with God? How should we describe that to somebody?
I think in this day and age, it means to fully trust and rely and wait and listen to God.
Yeah.
And so I think it starts with the very, very basics of spending time with God in the Word every day and prayer. And I think that's where just most of us fail, because we don't get to spend time with God. Especially nowadays. I think it's with all these technologies and social media, I keep saying that the more we have these things, the more we will just move away from God.
The Bible talks about keeping in step with the Spirit. I think it's in Galatians 5:16 through 26. So verse 16 says, "But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh." Then it talks about what are the desires of the flesh and the desires of the Spirit. Then it says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law, in 22. Then verse 25 says, "If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit." I guess the way I've heard it described is, as the Holy Spirit shows you areas of sin in your life, you surrender those things to God and ask him to help you change with his power, and then follow him in steps of faith. And I think what you described about the how-to of Bible study, faith, meditation, prayer, helps us to follow where the Spirit leads us. But I think sometimes people get caught up in like needing something big from the Holy Spirit. But walking with God could also be God just showing you sin in your life that you need to change, convicting you of that, or God like pushing you to be kind to somebody that you would normally be rude to or mean to.
Yep, that's a good answer. Yeah, and another question which is always raised, I think, with this chapter is, were these years true years, or maybe they were just numbers referring to other things? And for me, I choose to believe that these numbers were real years, that Methuselah actually lived 969 years. How we cannot reach those years today, I do not know.
I know a theory.
What's one of the theories?
A theory is that, so the next chapter talks about Noah. Don't want to give any spoilers, but there is some rain associated with Noah. And so people suspect that at some point the Bible talks about the firmament in the sky. So perhaps there was like an extra layer of atmospheric water or something that kind of trapped. They compare it to a greenhouse, something that was extra protective of the life on earth and reflected the sun's rays better. And then after Noah's time, that firmament was poured out And so now, because the same thing happens, right? If you grow a plant or a crop in a greenhouse, it gets even bigger than it would if it was just outside in the elements, because it's protected from the wind and storms. So that's a theory that I've heard talked about.
Yeah, I mean, there are many theories. I know a certain sect of Christianity speaks about the diet changing, and that after Noah, people started eating animals and meat rather, and so then meat changed the diet of human beings.
Yeah, I guess that's one of the mysteries, that if we get to heaven and care about, if we have any moments where we're not enthralled by God's glory 100% to ask.
There won't be any moments like that.
Yes, I realized as I was saying it that sounded foolish.
It's like you saying that there are moments I'm not thrilled by your beauty.
Oh, thanks, sweetheart.
Then how can we have moments where we are not thrilled by God's glory?
Well, maybe...
There is no maybe.
No. You are still thrilled by my beauty, but you can ask me about other topics. So I just don't know if... Anyways, this is a whole rabbit trail.
You don't know if what?
Like, I don't know if we'll be thinking about those types of questions when we get to heaven, or if our mental capacity will not even be at that point, because we're so overwhelmed with everything else.
I see. All right. Is there anything else to say?
Yeah, I think Noah had some interesting things about him. It said that Noah was named because out of the ground that the Lord cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and the painful toil of our hands. So it's interesting that, first of all, work must have been really hard then. So I think sometimes we might feel like we have it the worst. Our work is the hardest, but it's been hard ever since the curse of sin. And then also, it's interesting how Lamech thought that Noah would actually be removing that curse. It says he'll bring us relief from our work and painful toil. But first of all, Noah didn't do that. Noah brought a blessing from God, but he didn't remove that curse, because the only person who can remove the curse of sin is God himself. And so I've heard people say that Jesus is, the perfect Noah, because Noah couldn't remove that curse.
I've never heard that phrase before. And now I remember, I think I've also done that calculation.
Yeah.
But my question, I was wondering, where were these guys when Noah was getting in the ark? Because I was like, if these guys are 900 years, then they should have been alive when Noah was getting in the ark.
Well, Noah was 500. So let's see, Methuselah.
No, but by the time they got into the ark, they all died.
Even Methuselah?
All of them.
Oh, okay. So Noah fathered Shem, Ham, and Japheth. When Noah fathered them, Lamech had been dead for 12 years. Okay.
So Methuselah died just before the flood.
What? That is so interesting. I hadn't thought about that before. Okay.
All right. Do you have anything else to say?
Nope. I think that's it.
All right.
Oh, I just thought of the song "Nearer My God to Thee." It's a hymn, but it reminds me of Enoch and how he walked with God. And so the song is calling believers to walk always closer to God with our lives.